Hello, I'm Michael Howe with Gluware. In this demo, we're going to take a look at the new Run OS Shell Commands task in Network RPA. This introduces the ability to automate running commands on Linux or Windows hosts, including the ability to run scripts. So this task will automate the process of SSHing into a host and running any user-defined commands to accomplish the required automation. So automating commands on hosts can include configuring network settings or security settings, troubleshooting with ping and trace, monitoring, automating backups, and more. And as I mentioned, a powerful capability of this task is the ability to run scripts, which can include Shell, Perl, Ruby, Python, and any other supported scripting language, including PowerShell on Windows. So in short, users can integrate any command or script in a workflow with all the regular caveats, given they have those packages installed, they have the rights to use those, and it works outside, it is working kind of before you're automating it with the Gluware workflow. So this task is part of our Gluware 5.5 release and development, but it has become available here with Gluware 5.4 version, as long as you update your core package with the September 18th package. So let's get into the demo. So here we are in Gluware in my dashboard view. To get this demo started, we're going to navigate into the Network RPA task. So I'm going to use my left-hand nav here and navigate into Network RPA and go into the workflow library. So here in workflow library, we're going to start from scratch and really just show you how to do this right from the beginning. So we're going to hit create a new workflow, and we'll call this OS Shell Command Demo. I'll keep this private. You have the ability to make a workflow private or public. If you do assign it to be public, you can assign various access levels that are tied to role-based access control. Okay, so now I'm in my editor here, and all I do is drag and drop the task over. So if I search for shell, I'll find the new Run OS Shell Command task. And as mentioned in the drag and drop canvas, you just drag and drop that over into your workflow. I have my Run OS Shell commands. Let's double click on it and get started here. So, we're sitting in a not configured setup. So let's go through the form and get it configured here. So when you're configuring the Run OS Shell commands task, you select your operating systems, Windows or Linux. In this case, I'll be using Linux for this demo. You then select your connection pool. This is currently defined as a global in config modeling. We're going to take a quick look at that to get going. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and select the Linux host server that I do have configured in my setup. Here, then next we have the ability to add commands. So when I add commands, I just expand this dialog here with add commands. The command string I'm going to be running for the first command is running a Python script, which is basically just a simple test and verification for the purposes of the demo. I'm going to specify my working directory. This enables Gluware to validate we're in the right directory and validate that the script is existing there. And I'll leave the default timeout. I do believe it's important to check this box to return output to RPA. This gives you more information in your log as Gluware SSH into that host and interacts with it. You'll see all the output return in the log. So it's very helpful for troubleshooting purposes. So for the beginning part of this demo, I'm going to keep it simple and just simply run this script. I'm not going to add another command, but we'll expand on this simple demo and add other commands in the next iteration. I have the ability to elevate my super user. Like if I need to switch users after logging in, I can do that. I don't need to in this demo. And then we have the ability to define a script server and path. So again, we're not going to do this in this phase of the demo, but I do want to show, in fact, I can show an example of this is that you can specify a file server, and then you can enter commands into SCP a script onto the host prior to running it. So it's a little bit of an advanced use case, but we do have customers requiring the use case of Gluware kind of providing a simple mechanism to SCP the script onto a host and then being able to run it. And then we have the option for environmental variables. Again, I don't need to add any in this example. We can keep it pretty straightforward, but you can add in environmental variables that will be used can be used. So with that being said, we have everything configured here. I can remove this out of here since we're not using it. We have everything we need configured here to run this command on this host, which is going to be running this script. So let's go ahead and apply. So we see the task is configured. We're going to save. We're going to validate. It performs a workflow validation. So I can see my workflow has been validated. It's ready to run. I can go ahead and run the test. Let's go ahead and run that test and hit execute. And we'll go to activity view. So now the task is running. It's expected to run pretty quickly here because it's just SSHing into a host and running a command. It is already completed here in 9 seconds. I will double click into the log here and expand the log, and we can take a look at what has happened here. So looking at the log does give you a lot of detail in terms of, it's getting ready to run. Then it is starting the workflow task, which is running the shell command. So it's looking at the input. It's looking at the operating system, the directory. It is looking at, it's essentially changing the working directory to make sure we're in the directory that's the working directory that's specified. And then it's going to be executing the command. So here in the execute command phase of it, you can see here Gluware's, again, changing the working directory, verifying the prompt, and then it's executing the string, which is a Python hello world script. And I can see that it is executed successfully and finished. So the log tells you everything ran successfully, and that's great. So let's take this to evolve this a bit and do more with this script example here. So we'll go ahead and exit the log, and we'll go back to our workflow library. And with a script that you are still in test phase of development of your workflow, we can go back into edit. So we've accomplished the first part of this demo, which is just simply SSHing into a host and running a script. At this point, I'd like to dive a little deeper to show you a few more things. One is that when you're running your OS shell, it does require the connection info, in this case, the Linux host server. So just to show you where that's at, we're going to go into config modeling and globals. This task introduces 2 new globals in config modeling. One is called the shell host server. So any of the servers you're going to be SSHing into need to be defined here. So here's where I do have that Linux host server defined. And here I have the IP of the host, my username, my credential I'm referencing from my credential store in Gluware. So this is not a clear text password. And then this is SSH. So that is here. Then if we are doing the SCP of the file from a file server, there is another global here called server file host. And that is here as well. Again, very similar. Define your host, your username, and your credential. Then you can reference that in your task. So let's go back into the workflow library and let's go back and edit this workflow a little bit more. So we're running OS shell command. And one other thing I'll quickly mention is that you notice that we're not actually running with any targets or device like network devices. That's one thing that Gluware has expanded, where quite a few of the tasks that don't, let's say, automate network devices can run with 0 targets, meaning on the input parameters, we're not passing any target lists in. You're actually specifying the target to run against right here as we're pointing it at this Linux host. You expand your use case, you are normally going to be doing quite a bit more where you're doing network related automation and or testing or troubleshooting, as well as things at the host level. So let's get a little bit more involved here. What I'd like to do is a fairly important component when you're running network RPA tasks is to assign a variable. And the reason you want to assign a variable is that the variable enables Gluware to assign the finish object, the result of it, to a variable within the system that can be then used programmatically. I can write out the variable values, I can compare them, I can do operators against them, I can do all kinds of things. So we're going to we're going to add a variable. This variable name is going to be task response, shortened here. It is going to be of type string, and then I can just leave it this default value here in terms of the double curly brackets task response. So that's all I need to do and hit apply. So now adding that is going to give me, again, the JSON finish object that results in this, I'm going to be assigning it to this value here. So let me apply that. So let's go back and edit a few more things here to make this a little more interesting. We're running the command to run my script, but let's also add a command. And in this command string, we're going to do a simple ping verification. So this is just showing you how you could layer in more commands if you wanted to a single task. You can run more than one command. So this is going to be a ping to a device that we should have reachability to. And I'm specifying the count of 5. And I do want to return that output to RPA. And I don't need anything else configured here, and I hit apply. The other thing I want to do is I want to show you the variable value. So to do that, in kind of a simple demo, we're going to use the send email task. And what we're going to do is, so I can specify, I'm signed in, so I can specify myself as the job runner, and it should use my credential, my email, so you can check that. But in this example, I could also just show you other recipients, and then you can type in that here. I'll just say OS shell command results. In the body, you can have Gluware loop through targets, which is useful potentially if you're doing, lots of different targets like routers and switches that you're automating, and you want to Gluware to loop through those in your response. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to be doing a single output, and I'll just expand that. Gluware introduced Liquid.js templating like a couple of releases ago. So what we're able to do is put a Liquid.js template. We also support HTML in the body of this text. So what we're going to do, so I have this ready to cut and paste instead of just writing it here. We're going to assign a variable called data to my response object that I just created. So task response. And then when we look at the task response object, we're going to see that we have key value pairs for each of the shell outputs that we're running, because we're running a Python command, then we're also running a ping. So I'm taking the shell output, which is a component of that finish object. So I have my parameter 0 and my parameter 1. And then I'm going to just say, just in terms of taking the output out of this test, my hello world script output is this value, which is this one right here. And my ping results are the shell output 1, which is this value here. So this gives us the ability to specify a value out of that JSON object. So I just hit apply, just double check. You could add any other HTML to make this nice looking. I'm just adding a carriage return in here, so that's all good. So we do action save, validate. The validation will make sure that you're referencing variables correctly. So that is all good. And so let's go ahead and run the test. Once I'm running, I'll switch over to activity. We'll double click the log and open that up. This will take a few more seconds because it is running that second command. Okay, so the workflow's executed successfully. So I won't go over all the things that we saw before, because we are SSHing in. This time we're running a second command. So we're running the Python hello world script. Then we're running a second command, and you can see in this case, we're running the ping. And then because we did say put the response in the RPA log, we're seeing the response directly here in the log, which is great. But you don't want to always comb through logs for results. So what we see here, because we created a variable called task response, that variable task response was assigned the finish object. And this here is the finish object. So for the first command, which was this here, running the Python hello world, the shell output did echo back that hello world. So that's all good. Then I ran the ping command. So command string is ping, and I can see my shell output is this ping, and I can see all the ping was successful. So everything is good here in the log. So everything looks good in my log. Now I wanted to show you, as I look at the email response that came in. If I just bring over this email in here, you can see the system emailed out my what I put in the body of that email. So hello world script output is hello world, and the ping response is this string. So I just wanted to quickly show you the example where when you use a variable and you capture that response object, and we are capturing the result of the script and or command you're running. And then therefore you can use it programmatically. You can incorporate it with logic, or put it in a ServiceNow ticket, or put it in an email, or make it any part of a criteria for like an assessment, pass, fail, depending on the use cases that you're doing. So that concludes the demo. Hopefully you can see that the benefits of automating commands on hosts, including Linux or Windows, and running scripts with Gluware. This really can help with the consistency and help to eliminate human errors when running these sorts of things. Also, automating scripts and tasks ensure that they're performed the same way across multiple hosts. You don't have to take the time to log into each host manually, run commands, and collect that output. So it does bring efficiency and time savings, especially those repetitive tasks like system updates or software updates, backups, monitoring, test, and assessment. And really expands the use cases, because now, in addition to the network components you're already automating with Gluware, you can expand and automate things that involve the servers and the application side. So if it's a test and a verification, or if it's the deployment of a new application, you have the ability to automate those things and incorporate those into Gluware Network RPA workflows. Hopefully this was a valuable demo for you. This new task is available here in Gluware 5.4 with the package release that came out in September. Thank you for your time and attention.